Most of you guys already know us probably. I'm Reader, it's Whiskey, and Canthor, he's just going to stand there and heckle. We're going to try and get through everything, so if you have any questions, just like jot them down or something and ask us at the end. Okay? A lot of information. So, to get started, awards, what's the point? Awards allow us to recognize excellence in a number of fields. Recognition is important, positive reinforcement technique. It gives people a tangible experience to associate with their efforts and experiences in the community.
So with that in mind, when you think of like how you felt when you were getting an award or recognized for your hard efforts, like how good it made you feel, that's what we're looking for when we're trying these things out.
Yeah, it's kind of the hook that we use to grab onto the new players and then keep players. It's an invaluable recruiting and retention tool. Awards help us capture the hearts and minds of the new players. Local monarchs are especially essential in this role. Remember the first time you got an award, you were called up and if your monarch was good, you had your accomplishments extolled. They said, hey, they did this, they were specific, that's important. They were very specific. They laid out exactly what you did and why you were getting the award. Then you were showered with praise in front of everyone. You felt great. Well, most people feel great. It made you want to stay and potentially gave you inspiration for goals. I think it's important to realize that not everybody likes that, so you want to know your audience. So if the person feels uncomfortable with it, it might be better to just give them one privately.
Or just say, here it is.
Yeah. You can say they're getting this, and then later kind of talk to them about how impressed you were.
I think that's pretty much it. You just want to make sure the people that you're awarding, you know their boundaries for the most part and like where they like to be. So.
Yeah, I think you can generally operate under the assumption that everybody's going to like it, but if you know for sure that they don't, then go back and adjust for next time. Awards are supposed to be fun. Some of the funnest awards that I've gotten personally are the custom ones given as jokes. I have on my wall at home, I have the greatest wussy. And for a while we did, oh, you're a wuss, first order of the wussy, the greater wussy, greatest wussy, it was great. They increase camaraderie and they help continue everybody's, like, because a custom award isn't a ladder award, we can give it to the people who've been here forever. Because most of the veterans who are like, oh yeah, court, I can sit there for 3 hours and not get something again. So it's nice to be able to recognize them and give them a joke.
Or an extra little thank you that you can't give because they're already high up on that level ladder award. You're like, here's an extra thank you or a custom little title and things like that.
Absolutely. That kind of thing helps prevent burnout. It helps to fight burnout. All right, tips for court. The way we award is as important as the awards themselves. You ask the populace to remain quiet when presenting awards so people can get the acknowledgement they deserve. Have you guys ever been sitting there and people are just heckling and things are really loud and you can't hear? That's horrible when you're the one listening. It's even worse when you're the one getting the award. From first to master, we should be treating each other with respect. Refrain from awarding while the populace is being unruly. You can go ahead and wait, regain control. Don't be afraid to do that. You want to make... Sorry, yeah.
I was just going to like try to rudely interrupt you to prove a point.
Yeah.
But, yeah, be like, oh yeah, by the way, I have this thing that's not related to court kind of a thing. It's a little, you want to make sure we're staying focused on what the point of why we're all gathering.
Canthor, how's your personal life?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Just like that.
Okay, so then you're going to want to make each award special. You have a written or typed explanation of what the award is for exactly on the award. Usually, it doesn't need to be anything long. You just want to write it all there. That's also helpful for the PMs because then if they get the list and they go, what was this one for? Then the person can bring you the award and it says on the award specifically, this was for winning first in Dragon Master.
One point, sign your awards.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Another thing with why you want to put the reasoning is so that people can understand and gauge where they're at when they're getting those ladders so they can know that scope of what they've been doing. So you can see whether it's appropriate or not later down the road on like where they're getting a masterhood because you can see that record of what they've been working on. If you just have a lot of blank things, you're like, well, I don't know what they were recognized for, so I don't even know if this is appropriate to give. Yep. What if they already got that award? Yep. Things like that.
Then you want to announce it loud and clear so that everybody can hear you. You help everyone know why the person is awesome and why they're deserving of the recognition. Details make the humdrum experience into an exciting one. Because if you're just like, okay, all these guys are getting their third Garber, fourth, it's nice to be like, they're getting their third because here's the story.
We're not going to do Bueller.
Yeah. It's also important to have those explanations in the order, like we talked about, to prevent the repeat awards. That's so important, which we'll talk about in a minute. Make sure your awards are organized. This will help with the speed of court and keep the flow of things running smoothly. Higher level masterhoods and knighthoods should be at the end, because they're way more important. And if at all possible, separate.
It's better to hype, because if you go and like, I'm giving you your Master Garber, huzzah, hooray, and then you go to the next person, I'm giving you your first rose. It kind of confuses your audience on where you're going engaging with the flow of your court.
Yeah, so you're going to want to do all your low-level awards and then at the end do the higher-level awards. And I also recommend grouping awards together. So, okay, we're going to do all the Garbers first, and then we're going to do all the Lions, and then we're going to do... Make court entertaining. While it's important to make sure each person feels every award is important, it does not mean you can't make court enjoyable. Consider getting an individual as a herald. Be entertaining yourself. Don't just let the entertainment run away with the show. At the end of the day is still about being awarded.
Page 2.
Page 2. Keep in mind, some people get overwhelmed. This is what we were talking about earlier. Keep in mind, people are not all people are comfortable with the attention, and they would prefer not to be showered in it. Do your best to be sensitive to this and accommodate people.
For those that can get overstimulated or things like that, and it becomes too much for them, or they get really overwhelmed with their emotions, with the recognition they're getting, it's sometimes more appropriate to do a little bit more of a hush. Like if you are going to present it in a group, be like, hey, I'm going to present it here, but try to, you want to still project, but you want to keep your voice a little more calm, so they can still retain the information that you're giving them if they're okay with still coming up. Things like that.
You can check with their beltline or people that know them to if you're not sure how they're going to react, if you feel like they might, talk to people, or when in doubt.
No.
Yeah. If you do know, then you want to change the way that you're doing it. But.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go through each award and what it's for, because there's a lot of common misconceptions here.
Yes.
So for dragon, dragons can be considered a bit of a catch-all category. They lean more towards the artistic side of crafting, so they can be given for artwork, singing, poetry, cooking, beautifully designed garb, and overall A&S competition wins, if applicable, especially when the entrant shows breadth in their entering. So usually I'll give dragons if, oh man, this person does like 3 different things and they do them all really well, that's maybe dragon.
Yeah. On that note, with that, sometimes you'd be like, well, this was obviously a Garber thing. It's like, yes, but they already had Garbers that they were entering or things like that, but you want to focus but they also did something very artistically well done on that Garb piece that was very artistic, like a mural or kinds of things. That's still appropriate to give for a dragon. So.
But keep in mind, if they're already high on the Garber path, it's better to give it for, we're going to talk about that again here in a minute, but it's better to give it for their next one if it qualifies than to give it for this completely separate one.
Yeah, but if it's they're already at 9 Garbers and they're 5 dragons and you don't want to give them their 10th Garber, you can give them that next dragon.
Yeah. The next one, ignore the typo. Garber.
It was 138.
As it suggests, this is given for garb and garb accessories. This includes, but is not limited to, field garb, court garb, hats, shoes, sashes, pants, tunics, belts, etc. Basically anything that is worn, except for armor, fits in the category. You can also, for belts, I think they can sometimes be owl too.
It's subjective.
If they're leather.
Yeah.
Owl's category is directed more at the science and construction. So it's weapons, armor, shields, siege engines, furniture, structures. When we used to have the old way, it's like your passive constructions. We specifically put armor in there because there's a lot more science that goes into armor than guard, I would say, generally. Lions, service of leadership both inside and outside of office. Lions have been awarded for reigns of excellence in the past. Now we have crowns for that. So make sure that you're awarding crowns for excellence in office. Lions are going to be much more for things like
Event committee.
Yeah, event committee, or hey, you really stepped up. You weren't in charge of anything, but you really stepped up this reign and helped get everybody through it. You were a guiding influence.
Helping out a regent with a dragon master, things like that.
Yeah.
Hey, you really stepped up and filled that position that someone wasn't able to at that time.
You were mentoring, you were helping people out, you were doing leadership things, not necessarily in a leadership role.
Yeah.
For crown, well-executed terms, while in traditional forms of office in Amtgard, such as monarch, regent, prime minister, GMR, champion. For the other positions in Amtgard, more appropriate to award lions. So that's like your
Marshall.
marshal, captain of the guard, that kind of thing. For roses, roses are donations of time or money to Amtgard. It's another catch-all category. Can also be given for serving as a Crat for the event. I think one of the biggest roses I've seen is somebody built a castle. Rose.
No, that was like second round.
Yeah.
First.
Which we'll talk about here in a minute. Also.
That's an example.
Okay, smiths are for organizing and running Amtgard events and activities. So there's a lot of overlap with smiths and lions. So this is like, I ran the recruiting event, smith. Did battle games, ran battle games, smith. You're organizing and then executing things, not necessarily as part of an office. War crats, those kinds of things. Warriors should be pretty self-explanatory. At early levels, they're almost a gimme. Hey, you got out there, you fought in the tournament, first warrior.
Yeah.
But later, you're going to want to do, pay attention to the rules of play. Warrior's tricky. Then battle, same thing as warrior, awarded for understanding tactics in class battle games and playing effectively. It is best to refer the rules of play when considering the awards and talk to other Battlемasters. Canthor, you want to talk more about what you expect at the different levels for Battlemaster?
Well, any of you were actually there.
1, 5, 10.
Quick.
So 1, basically they've played a class, they understand that level, their first level class, they have a stash.
Sweet.
5, they've progressed in their class, they know up to whatever level they're at, and are able to explain it to, say, a first level person up to that level. A master would have to be able to, 1, not only teach someone else that's a lower level, but be able to explain the intricacies of the different types of that class, as well as multiple other classes or just battle games in general, as to how to operate within them.
Okay, the non-ladder awards, and this isn't an exhaustive list. So we got Zodiacs, they're given for service above and beyond to the group. Zodiacs are usually given for months, but they're like, hey, you did an amazing job, we want to recognize you, especially for like the people who are at higher levels. We really, really appreciate that you did this for us this week. Roaches are for role-playing dastardly and evil deeds. There's a fine line, however, while role-playing an evil character between jest and bullying, so be careful that you're not bullying people. Don't cross that line and make sure everyone's having fun. That's the whole point of the Roach. Mantis is the opposite of the Roach. You're role-playing heroic deeds. And a lot of it is perspective. Yeah. I was given a Roach I was given a Mantis for the exact same thing that my partner in crime was given a Roach for. And then masks are given for extraordinary roleplay during the reign, always being in character, portraying your character well, making an effort to make or acquire the appropriate garb for the character. Flames are given to a group, and I don't know if that's still once per reign.
That's the only one.
That's the only one still only once per reign? Okay, good. So you give it to a group of individuals. It could be a fighting company, a household, a park, all squires, etc.
The entire kingdom?
Yeah.
For extraordinary service to the crown. Defender and Protector are special titles for serving of the reign of excellence as kingdom or provincial champion. Custom awards. Can't find an award for what you want to recognize? Make one. Make sure it doesn't fall within the scope of an already existing award you can give. Get creative. Here are some examples that I've had in the past. So Juror, we did a custom award for judging A&S because we were having a hard time getting people to judge A&S. So we gave awards for it. Quills, custom award for online roleplay. Mentors, custom award for ongoing and outstanding mentoring. So whatever you want an award for, if it doesn't fit into some other category, just make one. Ladder awards, things to consider. Ladder awards are the awards that can lead to masterhood of a path and potentially knighthood if they choose it. These are arguably more important than non-ladder awards, and they require special consideration on the part of the awarding monarchy. Early versus later awards. Early awards, before 5th for most, should be given more freely. That doesn't mean, for example, that they should be given without thought. First orders should be relatively easy to get. It's recognition of a player getting their feet wet in a certain area. For new players, it helps them to get a glimpse of the enormity of our world and helps us hook them and helps them to stay. 6th through 9th awards should be progressively more difficult to achieve, requiring players to attain and show more skill in the area concerned. Tournament players' A&S scores successfully completed service projects, reigns of excellence to begin to matter. Special note, Serpent Ladder awards do not require people to enter to be obtained. However, entering certainly helps to get the exposure that you need. You should consider the bar at which a certain award is set. Look at the players who have been awarded X level awards in the circumstance you're considering awarding on par with their, are you awarding on par with their peers? If not, consider holding on. At 10 in Masterhood, you should definitely be consulting with masters both in and out of the kingdom, where possible. These awards are given prematurely, can cause serious frustration for the player and may burn out players. So if you give somebody a Masterhood and they haven't really earned it, eventually
it can cause a lot of strife between the person who received it and others around them, or jealousy or bitterness. And other people will be like, well, I've been doing so much. Why did they get recognized for something that I did or they didn't necessarily do? Things like that. It can cause a lot of friendships to break and things like that. So you want to make sure you are consulting your fellow masters before we're like, well, I really want to give it to them. It's like, yes, but how does it look as a perspective of the scope of the kingdom? Do they also believe that they are a masterhood level?
And I would say when in doubt, at least with the 10th and Master, if you're not sure, then don't. Yeah. Because somebody, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. It's a lot easier to encourage them to say, well, keep being awesome and you'll get there eventually, than it is to explain to everybody else.
And throw them into a bag of wolves.
Yeah. And it's one of the final steps before knighthood, so you shouldn't give it lightly, because otherwise it's just going to snowball and get worse for them. Something that we have today that makes it much easier to keep track of people you're considering awards for is the Orc Award Recommendations section. And this is going to be Whiskey here in a minute.
Yep, that's me. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyone can enter recommendations onto the Orc, and while it is a wonderful resource, you should not take recommendations at face value. Some people may be recommended for something under the wrong ladder, or not on par for an 8th like what was recommended. Sometimes there are no recommendations on the Orc, but they have entered or volunteered a lot recently that you have noticed. There are things to consider, and having a support group with your fellow monarchy members and some masters is important for this. I've noticed sometimes on our Orc and everything, especially for how much I've been recommending and stuff, sometimes there are some things where like they feel like, oh, like where I was recommended a 10th dragon for my volunteer work. It was under the wrong ladder, but sometimes it sticks because it was under the wrong thing. So you want to make sure that when you are recommending something, you're double checking and reading the ladder award recommendation that you're putting in to make sure it's under the correct thing. Otherwise, it's going to stay stuck on that Orc forever. So
it's going to confuse the next monarch.
And it
Maybe
does.
they're new and they don't understand.
And they don't understand, or they don't consult enough people. It can cause a lot of issues later down the road. They're like, wait, why did they get that for that? You want to make sure that you're consulting a team.
Just real quick, if you're like, oh, they did really good, they deserve their 4th warrior, but they only have 2, and they get their 3rd for that recommendation will stay there until they get their 4th. And then people go looking like, oh, no, they already got it. It's right here. They got that. I don't need to look at that.
They got to
And
verify.
people like, oh, well, yeah, they already have a recommendation for the 4th, so I'm not going to put it on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% make sure you're keeping track of what you're recommending and what level they're at.
Then warriors and Battlemasters are a different animal. They're the 2 paths that are very clearly laid out in the rules of play. Many of the tips for the other awards apply. There are hard lines for these awards. Always read the rule book when considering the warriors and Battlemasters, and always try to consult higher end fighters. Early level warriors can be awarded for battlefield prowess. Similar to the other awards, you should consider for a place to start. Have they stepped on the field? Are they fighting frequently? Did they participate in their first tournament? A big step for most new people. But beyond 1 and 2, there are suggested guidelines. Check the rule book carefully and often in regards to them. And then the later ones, later warriors and warlords, have very strict guidelines covered in the ROP. But a consistent thing that comes up in regards to warriors is the statement, well attended. It is important, especially for later warriors, to make sure the tournaments you're awarding for represent a goodly number of higher end fighters. The later the award, the stiffer the competition should be. When in doubt, ask the high-level fighter or even multiple, they'll know.
Real quick, the early warriors for battlefield prowess are now 1 through 5.
General tips. 1 item, 1 award. Players should only ever receive 1 award for the item/action. No double dipping. The only kind of exception is if you're doing body of work. They've been doing so good for so long, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't awarded, and some of the stuff was awarded. That's kind of the only
It's kind of
exception.
a gray area.
Yeah. But in general, 1 item, 1 award. Players need to rank up. For example, if they come out on their first day and build a castle, an achievement worthy of a higher level award, they still only get their first order because it's still their first day. The question then becomes, what about their second? How do they top that? The answer is they don't have to. As long as their subsequent work is worthy of the next level, they can be awarded. The same thing is true if they produce master quality work from the beginning. As long as they continue to produce master quality work, they will continue to get the subsequent awards. So it's like something that is a lower level. It's like lower level awards are given for simple things, but they can be given for higher level things. But higher level awards,
Cannot be given for lower quality work.
well,
They can.
They can.
They shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be.
They should.
and you don't say, okay, well, they're going to get 1 through 4 for this amazing thing. You just give them the first one, and then the next one, I'm sure they did something amazing, they'll continue to do something amazing. In essence, look at the next level and ask yourself, is this contribution achievement worthy at least the next level? If yes, then go ahead and award it. Occasionally, body of work, i.e. multiple items, can be taken together and awarded. As a general rule, you should ensure that the items taken together occurred over the same amount of time and have not been previously awarded. Occasionally, as can happen with masterhoods towards Serpent, body of work may encompass many years of an artisan's efforts. Be sure to be scrupulous in investigating and gain advice from current masters before proceeding. That's all masterhoods in general. In the case of officers, be careful in awarding them things like smiths in the execution of their duties. The awards for recognition of time in office are lions, titles of nobility, and crowns. Specifically, crowns are going to be where you want to go. And anything performed while in office should be recognized with those awards.
Titles of nobility as well as crowns.
If it's a reign of excellence, yes.
Crowns are reign of excellence, titles of nobility.
Above and beyond.
Stay away from nepotism, or even the appearance of nepotism. There should be very few situations in which you're awarding your family or running mate. This can lead to the populace not believing in the awards, or worse, may stain the players' awards themselves. If in doubt, you may always pass the awards to the following monarch or hand it off to the other level. If you're the park monarch, you can recommend it to the kingdom. If you're the kingdom monarch, you can recommend it to the park. If you should find yourself needing to proceed, seek multiple people's advice and even approval. Masterhoods always consult current masters and those of high skill in the area you're considering making someone a master in before bestowing the award. To not do so is to do the player a disservice. Never make the decision lightly or alone. Knighthood, always obtain Circle of Knights' opinion on a player. That doesn't mean you have to listen to them.
Yeah.
Consider their character and accomplishments. Time as a master can reveal important information about a person's character. It is not always appropriate to knight as soon as one has the buck stops. Never make a decision lightly or alone again. When in doubt, speak up. Utilize your resources. Ask the opinions of others. Come to those who have experience. We're here to help you. Anything else?
That's pretty much it on that.
Awesome. That's the end. Questions?
Rocky?
Okay. All right. Rocky first.
So I waited to the end to ask my questions.
Silver.
How often would you recommend, instead of, like, because you don't want to let the cat out of the bag and somebody's getting an award, but you don't recognize whether or not that person's going to be comfortable standing up and getting an award, maybe you don't know them, would going to a new standard of calling said person up or a representative for said person up?
The way you could word it is like, is this person here and are they comfortable stepping forward?
That's actually
It's a
exactly
simple
what I-
change of wording that you can do.
Especially for the higher levels.
Yeah.
Because that's when it starts to really matter. Most people are real comfortable if it's at the beginning, but
When it gets high up there, it can get really emotional.
Yeah.
So,
so yeah, that's
that's a
way
great
to do
question.
it.
Thank you. Edward, were you next?
Okay.
Yeah.
I had 2 questions.
Okay.
First, well, first one's a statement. Dragon, according to rules play, is also worded for roleplay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you give?
Again, this is like a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Right, right. Would you give Dragon to roleplay, or now that masks are no longer once for reign, is now appropriate to give masks that don't lead to knighthood anymore?
I would still do the dragon if they're interested in.
It depends on how artistically executed it is and how well they did it on the level of dragon that I would give. It would still be working on a scale for me. But I do think it's appropriate to give for role-playing.
I mean, I think you can do both.
Yeah, you could do both.
Yeah.
Like if they're head to toe and like they look like a goblin, it's a dragon.
Yeah.
If they're just playing a goblin.
Yeah.
What are they looking for?
Yeah.
Are they looking for dragons, or are they really like masks?
That's
There's
why you
lots
want
of
to pay
players who
attention
just
to their
love
work
masks.
and what they're working on in their goals.
And I know masks used to be a knighthood path once upon a time, so
No,
that is a
That
long
was
time.
long. That was way before us.
that was way old.
What
Yeah.
is your next question?
For the lions and smiths, for like being a crat, what is the opinion on giving the appropriate thing? Because if you're running battle games, is that
Yeah. I would say it depends on the path they're looking and working towards. If you're more in the leadership role of the crat position that you're doing and stuff, I would award it more appropriately for a lion. If you're doing it more on the construction and the scientific base of like how people are interacting in a scenario, I would base it more off of a smith. How well did you execute it and have it like interactive with those players, kind of a thing? I would award it appropriately that way.
Were you the leader, and you made it happen as the leader, or were you the one that actually did the work?
would you give both?
Architect?
Would
Then
it
it
be
could be
appropriate-
either. It depends on what you're
prefer.
going.
Would it be appropriate to give like the lion for the leadership aspect of it, and then the smith for actually creating the actual battle game?
You could do both in a way. So the way you would do it is like the way that you're presenting it and teaching it and stuff, and like have it as example for that position that you're in. It's very appropriate for your leadership skills if that was exemplified really well. But if you're looking for also a smith, I would be like, well, how well was that actually executed? How complex was this thing that he did, and was it able to be easily readable by those players? You don't want to make it too complicated, but you want to make sure that those players are having fun and a good time in a way that they can understand quickly. Yes.
And would that go back to the one award for one thing?
That's why
Yes.
you want to do it based off of like one lion for that position, but if you're doing something else entirely that's not quite related to that thing, you can go for a smith on those things. They should still be separate. in a
So
way.
like, if you were in charge of the event committee and you did a really good job, but you also made yourself the warcraft,
Yeah,
and you did a really great job as warcraft, and you led the event committee, lion for leading the event committee, smith for the warcraft.
yeah. So they should still stay separate that way.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say the exact same thing Rocky said of like, and I think that kind of ties very much into like the accessibility for people with neurodivergence and how much more acceptable and less stigmatized it's becoming to not be neurotypical in Amtgard is like, yeah, if you're comfortable, present yourself to the court,
Yeah.
or, I mean, and what I was thinking is maybe even have like an appointed representative that will take the awards on behalf of those people and then walk around and give those to those people.
That's a good idea.
Herald, as a matter of fact.
That would be the herald.
Yeah, you could have the herald do it, or you can just ask for a representative from
Yeah.
their belt line.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even like we could have a dedicated person. It just depends on how that person flows with their way that they're doing court and stuff. But I think it is a good idea to have someone just dedicated to stand in place for someone that's not comfortable. If you say, hey, is this person comfortable stepping forward? And if they say no, we'll just have them step in really quickly so we can keep the flow of the court going.
That makes sense.
So, thank you. Did you have a question?
I actually have two as well.
Okay.
So the first one was the crown,
Mhm.
right? So, because that's changed. So the titles of nobility are basically the crown?
No.
Or like how is
They're
that
different. I personally view titles of nobility as frosting on the cake for the service that you did.
Yeah.
It does not equate to your rank or your knowledge in the game and what you've done in office. It just is an extra little thing in flair that you can add to your title.
So you can still get the crown without getting, say
Absolutely.
they don't give a title. You have a reign of excellence, but they can't award you your next title because they're
Yeah.
Title bump,
or
but-
not.
So like if you already have like a high title, but you don't have like a lot of crowns, like you've been introduced to a new system and you were kind of fell through the cracks kind of a thing, but you were in a region, you kind of just did like the basic things for a region, you were just looking to get your third crown. I would probably happily give you a third crown, but I'm not going to give you a title bump because you weren't related to what's in the org on the titles, kind of a thing.
The other question is about nepotism.
Yes.
What would you do if you know that somebody's done a great job with something, but you don't want to give it to them because you don't want other people to think that you just gave it to them.
You can pass it to the next monarch in line, or another thing you can do is talk to everyone else around you and make sure to communicate and see what their perspective and opinion is of that. If you have it to a point of where everyone else is very comfortable, like, oh yeah, they absolutely deserve that kind of thing, you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page in your environment, instead of like a surprise like, oh well, since you guys didn't agree with me, I'm going to give you this award, because that's just going to cause more of a rift and an issue within your community. So.
Yeah, so try to bump it up to the kingdom, but if you have to, then check with everybody.
Yeah, like if you're the one that's constantly in office and no one else is stepping in, kind of a thing, it's like, you know what, I'm still here, everyone else in this community also agrees with this kind of a thing, like obviously you've been doing that work, I'm going to award you, and I don't have a shadow of a doubt that you deserve this, because everyone else also is on that same page with the work that you've been doing.
And when you award that, you probably want to make
Yeah.
sure that you explain all of that to
Yeah.
everybody so that they don't just
Like
think, oh,
here, that's why you keep track of what you're putting specifically on that award. You want to be as specific as possible. If there's a shadow of a doubt, don't hand it out. But if you think that you can justify and explain in your reasonings of that to make it so it's not arguable in a sense, like this is the reasons why, here are my check stubs and everything on this and this and this, that's what you're going to want to make sure that's very important to put into the org. Yes, Warner.
So if you do pass it on, what do you do when the people you pass it on either forget or don't agree?
You continue to recommend it. That's what the org is so resourceful for, because that stuff doesn't go
It's
away
nice to
until it's
have
given
that
in
in.
there, or unless they delete it themselves. You can delete your own recommendations of it given into your org, or the ones that you've recommended to other people. So if you feel like you change your mind, or you're like, oh, I realize I put something in the wrong matter, you can remove that recommendation, you put it and change it. And if you feel like someone's still not listening, you can start talking to your community like, hey, this person's been doing a really good job. What do you guys think about recommending the org? All you can do is try to emphasize and highlight and hype people up in your community and focus on that, because even if people do deserve it and it's frustrating to see them not get that stuff, the thing that's going to cause burnout is getting upset about those things. Make sure that those people are still having fun with what they're doing, and that's what they're really going for. Yes.
So there, I realize that there's two mutually exclusive things that are fundamentally at odds with each other. The ability to be eligible for a Master Crown or Knighthood after 2 reigns at Kingdom Office, and the you only get 1 award for 1 thing.
That's the argument that we had about with if you continue to do that master work. Like, for example, for my 4th Smith, I earned that from autocrating a Salt Wars event and running that. But that doesn't mean I should automatically be bumped up to this thing because I was qualified for it before. I was already recognized for it. I continue to volunteer and put in work that I thought was really great, that I had fun with, without trying to burn myself out. And that's why I also autocrated again, or done something that helps with making waves for the kingdom and stuff. You'd want to, even though you've already done those things and you feel like, well, I've already done it, why should I care anymore? The whole point of you doing those things is because you wanted to. The award on top of it is just an extra thank you and appreciation for it.
So I think more specifically,
Yeah.
what Whiskey was trying to say is like, so yeah, they ran as king, that could get you, I don't even know, up to like a 5th crown.
It can get you pretty, but yeah.
But if you get the 2nd one and you did another reign of excellence as king, then there you go, there's your 2nd one. So the masterhood is for the 2nd one, but it's also recognizing the earlier one.
Yeah.
Because the thing is with Kingdom Office especially, as the Kingdom Monarch, is sometimes the reigns are uneventful.
Yeah.
And some of them are really eventful. So if you run at least 2, you're going to run into the problem at some point.
Yeah.
I just feel like that kind of puts people in a position where they almost have to, like, almost relegate themselves to doing, like, because let's say, for example, someone who's at like a 4th crown, 5th crown, really, really wants to go into Kingdom Office and is more than qualified to do so. If they are going for that knighthood path, they either have to then do 5, like, they have to do those 2 reigns, plus 1 more, plus another something that would get them their 9th, 10th, and master.
So my argument would be is like, are they actually running it because they want to run for Kingdom for fun, or are they doing it because they want a knighthood?
And also, I think most people don't just jump into the big chair.
Not like me. Most people don't do what I did.
Most of the time, you're building up to it.
Yeah.
You know, first I'm going to do KPM. That's a kingdom level. Okay, then I'm going to do Kingdom Champion. And then I'm going to
GMR.
And then when you're ready, you're like, okay, now I'm going to do King or Queen.
Yeah.
Honor, whatever.
And if you did run a really excellent reign with Kingdom Office, what stops you from running again?
Yep.
There's
True.
tons of opportunities. Amp isn't going anywhere. We can always run and do more reigns and do things. And the more fun it is when you have a contested reign. It makes it exciting. I'm currently going on a contested reign, and it's fun. I'm competing as Regent against Tierva, and it's awesome. So there's just things that you can keep doing to still make it fun and still run for office. And I think if they only want to run for Kingdom Monarch once to try to get that masterhead level,
Probably do that.
they should do it at the end then, and that would be the way that they'd have to choose their path.
And I mean, if you got your 5th for running as Kingdom Monarch, then your 6th could still be KPN.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more follow-up question
Yeah,
about
sure.
ladder rewards? So
We got like 15 minutes. So.
I'll use, if it's okay, I will use myself as an example. I have 2 Paragons, and that's one of those things that is explicitly stated
For Battlemaster.
for towards Battlemaster. I'm only at my 7th battle, and I think I was awarded 7th because I had 1 Paragon, but by the rules of play it says 8. How does that
It's more
reconcile?
subjective because it's
Most of the awards as far as the rules of play, those are guidelines, not necessarily the hard and fast rule of this has to be awarded when they get this.
Yeah.
So someone else may see, okay, you've got a Paragon, well, we're going to give you your 8th and 9th and 10th because you have 2. Or they may not.
I think
That's
part of the
something that
problem,
we're trying to correct.
yeah, is it's messy right now because we're going from the old system to the new system. That's actually the same problem that you were talking about with offices, because we're still fixing Crown.
Yeah.
Trying to reconcile some
It's
of
going
the
to be messy
changes.
for a while, but as time goes on, it'll become much more of a clear, standardized set and expectation for that ladder.
In case it needs to be said, it genuinely doesn't matter to me. I just
Yeah.
feel like that's a really good example
It is a
of
good
how that carryover, that reconciliation between this is what the rules of play state as this should be the guideline for the standard. Obviously, I understand that it is more of a recommendation than anything.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that with players that have 3 or 4 Paragons but only have 6 orders of battle or 5 orders of battle if they're in a barony?
As long as they're still continually being active and making those waves at Kingdom things and stuff like that, they'll eventually get recognized as they should. Just like with
Just
Roses.
like building a castle.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, now, when Order of the Battle came out, it was brand new, and every kingdom decided how they were going to deal with it completely differently.
Yeah.
And how we dealt with it is we looked and they were like, okay, well, we're going to go with this where they're talking about Paragons. And basically back awarded people. So oh, you have your Paragon, that's 1, there's 7.
Kind of
Now
like a different
that
round.
we've moved beyond that backlog, we're looking now to move into a new era where we just start giving out the awards as they go as a ladder, instead of just going oh, you got a Paragon, here's your Paragon, and now we're giving you 7 orders of battle. That's not how we want to do that.
Yeah. We're trying to go with a more appropriate pace with those award recommendations now.
You have a question, Rocky?
Oh, mine was on the double dipping for awards.
Okay.
So given that we've had people that come into the game that are long-time cross gamers, say, really good example would be when Lyndon came over from SCA in the Amp Guard and just blew the blue scroll work out of the water. That was just started making things and becoming a pinnacle of excellence for that. At what point do you draw the line between going, oh, I don't want to dishearten you and be like, here's your first dragon, because that's what you're going to get for doing this masterpiece, and skipping a few to get them to a point where they're competing at that level. In the same way that you would if you swept a warrior tournament or a warlord tournament and got your 1st through 7th award for doing that.
So you shouldn't be getting your 1st through 7th award for doing that.
No. The way that you could still argue is are they still going to continue putting those things out? Because if it's a one and done thing, why are you handing out that high level award if they're not going to be doing that anymore? They should be recognized for the same amount of stuff that everyone else is making too, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that goes back to the castle.
Yeah.
So as long as they keep doing masterhood work, they're going to just keep getting
Or
the next
even
one.
if they do something low, they could still get their 3rd. It's
No.
not based on you do you make that castle, but for a 3rd rose, he just goes and volunteers and helps clean up a kitchen kind of a thing.
That's appropriate for
He
a
still
third
gets
rose.
a 3rd rose.
Yeah.
It's not like he has to keep building a castle every single time.
My question is more about the retention of
The
a player,
optics.
where they're if I show up to Amp on day one in a full suit of fully tailored armor,
Yeah.
and I'm like, check it out, and you go in, and somebody's like, that's your first level owl, but then this guy gets a 5th level owl for tooling a small bracer.
So that's why you go make sure to explain.
Yeah.
You say, this actually would be a masterhood level award normally, but they're only at their first because they're new to Amtgard. So we're giving them their first, and hopefully they will continue to be awesome so that we can continue to award them for being awesome.
That's why you try to encourage them by having them come out more. If they keep making things or keep participating, that's when you keep acknowledging and recognizing that they're still doing stuff. You don't want to just immediately give them a 10th or a master, because like, who says they're going to stay?
Yeah,
Anyways.
we had a player, Jocelyn, and she grew up doing costuming in plays and stuff. So she came in hand stitching
Immaculate historical
right off
gowns.
the bat. But she earned her first through her masterhood and eventually knighthood just because she kept doing it.
Because that's something she enjoyed and did.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the game, is doing something that you love and want to do. And then you get recognized for it on top of it as a bonus.
If you're the person who's going to come in and be like, oh, I made all this, cool, and they're like, well, here's your first, well, that guy didn't get it, I don't want to be here. Is that the kind of person that we want to be here?
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
yeah,
something we
and
want
just
to gain.
explain how it works.
Yeah.
I mean, and as the monarch, you can do that. Just explain it when you give it, and then everybody will go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. The hard difference is understanding it's not necessarily like, is what they did worth a third? Yes, at least a third. Okay, it's a castle that's worth a masterhood. So if they build a castle every year for 10 years, they're going to get a masterhood off building castles.
But they don't have to build a castle every year.
Well, then you
Right.
can just make a pair of bracers, and that can be your second. And you can make this, and that'll be your third.
Because a pair of bracers is worth a second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to make a suit of armor every time to get your next level.
It just has to be appropriate for that ladder that's
Yeah.
there in that scale.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that point is actually what I was going to ask. What would be the optics of suggesting that that person enter piece by piece? Like, okay, so this person has bracers, elbow cops, shoulder cops. They have the breastplate, the tassets. They've got the whole suit of armor. What would be the optics on being like, hey, as a suit, this is a master level work. If you enter individual pieces, we grade those on their own merits because those are their own. Every single one of those pieces is their own body of work.
Well, you could also tell them to wait to enter the thing until they want it recognized for it. That's another thing you can do. But at the same time, like if they're doing that master level work, they're going to be able to continue to do that and prove it.
Is that something that is in bad form to suggest to somebody?
No, you can tell somebody like, hey, don't enter this, like this is, you have these pieces, you don't have to put them all in at once.
Yeah.
You can put in your bracers as one, you can put in your greaves as one. If they're really good, I mean, they'll get the awards as they go up.
Yeah.
But the problem is they can no longer take those as a whole at the end and be like, here's my master project, it's all this stuff I've already done.
Sure.
They wouldn't get awarded for that as a whole at the end.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if it was like considered to be in
It's
bad taste.
not bad taste, either way to do it, I don't think it's in bad taste.
But also it's like, because you don't actually have to enter anything to be awarded, if anybody sees it, then it could be awarded for that.
Yeah.
So I think the problem is discouraging people from trying, like so many people get caught up in the rat race. Oh, I need my next one, I need my next one, I need my next one. That's not what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about just do whatever you can do your best, and then the awards will follow. That helps with combating people's burnout too.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have this. Okay, well, maybe it didn't get seen or whatever. Just keep being awesome and you'll get there eventually.
And just because you did something 5 or 10 years ago, like, well, what are you doing now? That's what matters. Are you being active and present now?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying
I
to
think
recognize.
Finley had it. No, you're good. Okay, so Sasha.
I think it's also important to note that it's still up to the monarch's discretion to award for that.
Yeah.
So just because you broke it up doesn't mean they'll necessarily get an award for each thing. One of the things that I like telling people is that this game will turn you into a better person if you allow it to.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because especially if you start getting near those upper level awards and you want to not get an award, whether you feel you deserve it or not, if you take that opportunity to just internalize and go, okay, I'm just going to keep trying. I'm just going to keep trying. I'm just going to keep doing. I got no awards for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I was entering stuff.
Yeah.
Just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And I came out of it with a completely different outlook than I would have had I been entitled and, oh, well, I feel like I should be getting this and I'm not. It was just like, well, that's up to their discretion and
I guess that wasn't good
I'm just
enough.
gonna keep working until I get there.
Some of the things
Eventually, someone will recognize you.
Yeah, some of my things took 5 to 6 years to recognize, so.
Yeah.
But there was times where, yeah, it did kind of hurt my feelings, but I had to think about like, well, why does it upset me so much? And I had to think about, I was like, well, is this really why I'm doing it, or am I doing this because it's fun? Is this something that I want to keep doing? Or am I doing it to just try to get recognition from people? So, it's something that a lot of people have to think about.
Absolutely.
It's a really difficult balance to find that, like, I'm
It
sharing
really
this with
is.
the world versus I would like to get recognized for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's
I
hard.
did not have fun in this game until I started figuring that out.
Yeah. Did you still have a question, Finley?
No,
Oh, okay.
you guys
Blood had one.
Yeah.
So as far as awarding awards to people outside of your park, say your neighboring park is a Shire and they can only get up to 3, but you see them doing stuff like, would it be out of good faith to talk to like the Shire's monarch if you're the monarch of a duchy and be like, hey, we see what they're doing, we want to award them for this, is that okay? Or
I would,
like, what would be the process there?
I would say bump that to kingdom.
Yeah, it's more appropriate to give it to the monarch because then they can also see it as well and they'll become on the monarchy radar and stuff like that. It makes it really fun. Like if your park can't give out that award, but the monarchy can, it's also something fun that that kingdom monarch can do and bring some more joy into that position that he's running. So let him have that enjoyment with it because there's a lot of hard things you have to deal with when you're a monarch. But the thing that makes it really fun is being able to recognize and give people that enjoyment of being recognized for their efforts.
To add on to that, not your populace, not your award.
Yeah, but you can absolutely recommend them for it.
Yeah.
I've recommended people
Yeah.
outside of Kingdom.
Yeah, go
I
talk to
always
them.
recommend.
Billy's got a last question.
It actually was a comment on that, in that Kingdom can also sign off an award
Yeah.
for the Shire monarchy
To
to
give.
give
Yeah.
out, and like that would be another way to go.
Yeah, thank you, I forgot about
And
that
they,
part.
yeah, me
That's-
too, I
yeah.
forget, that was good.
Yeah. I've done it before, I just don't remember when I'm on office, but,
Okay, you said that was the last one.
yeah. But
Unless you have any other quick questions, because we don't listen
if
to
you do
word
have
here.
questions that were not able to be asked during this time, I am reposting the AMA form onto the Kingdom board. So if you have a question you really need to ask, I will provide those questions into the Masters chat, and we can discuss it and post it onto the public forum after this event. So, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.